The strangest thing about losing yourself is that it rarely happens all at once. Most of the time, it happens quietly, through 1,000 small moments where you choose peace over honesty, until one day you can no longer recognize the sound of your own voice. My name is Rose, and I'm 79 years old. And when I look back on my life now, the hardest truth to admit is that I became someone I didn't even like just to keep everyone around me comfortable. I wasn't born that way. As a little girl, I was loud and curious and emotional in the way children naturally are before the world starts teaching them which parts are acceptable. I used to sing while walking through the house. I asked too many questions at dinner. I laughed too loudly in church once, and my mother squeezed my arm so hard under the pew that I cried in the bathroom afterward. She wasn't cruel, at least not in the way people usually mean it. She simply believed that good girls were pleasant girls, quiet girls, girls who didn't make life harder for anyone else. And because I loved her, I learned. I learned how to read a room before speaking. I learned how to notice tension quickly and smooth it over before it grew. I learned that approval could disappear very suddenly if you became inconvenient. By the time I was a teenager, people described me as easygoing, which sounded like a compliment at the time. Teachers loved me because I never caused trouble. Friends came to me with their problems because I listened without judgment. Boys liked me because I rarely disagreed with them openly. I built an identity around being agreeable. And the frightening thing is how rewarded you become for it. People smile at you when you make yourself smaller. They call you selfless, mature, kind. They rarely notice the slow erosion happening underneath. I married young, 21. My husband, Richard, was confident in a way I admired because I had never learned confidence myself. He had opinions about everything: restaurants, politics, parenting, furniture, which friends were worth keeping, which dreams were realistic. At first, it felt comforting to let someone else decide things. I mistook passivity for peace. When he asked where I wanted to eat, I'd say, "Anywhere is fine." And often it really was fine. But after enough years of saying that, something strange happens. You stop checking what you actually want. That frightened me later, when I finally noticed it. We had 3 children close together, and life became busy in the ordinary ways life does. Laundry, school pickups, bills, birthday cakes, arguments about money whispered behind closed doors after the children went to sleep. I became very skilled at emotional management. If Richard came home irritated, I adjusted myself accordingly. If the children were upset, I absorbed it. If relatives criticized me, I apologized quickly just to restore calm. I thought I was being loving, but there's a difference between kindness and disappearing. I see that clearly now, though I couldn't back then. The truth is, I was terrified of conflict. Not because people yelled often in my house growing up, but because I had learned early that love felt safest when everyone around me was pleased. So I treated other people's comfort like my responsibility. And over time, that responsibility became exhausting. There were moments when the real me tried to surface. Small moments, quiet rebellions. I remember once in my 40s, standing in a bookstore holding a brochure for an art class. I had loved drawing as a girl, before practical life swallowed everything soft and unnecessary. I remember feeling this sudden spark of excitement while reading the class schedule. When I mentioned it to Richard later that night, he laughed lightly and said, "You'll quit after 2 weeks. You never stick with hobbies." He probably forgot saying it 5 minutes later. I carried it for 20 years. That was another thing about me. I swallowed disappointment whole. I rarely confronted people directly. Instead, I buried hurt so deeply that eventually even I couldn't separate it from my personality. I just became quieter, more tired, less visible, and people assumed that was simply who I was. In my 50s, I started noticing something uncomfortable. I was becoming resentful, not loudly, not dramatically, but internally constantly. I resented how much everyone seemed to need from me while barely noticing me at all. I resented dinners I cooked while listening to conversations where no one asked my opinion. I resented being dependable. I resented how carefully I managed everyone's emotions while nobody seemed aware I had emotions too. But even then, I blamed myself for feeling that way. A good woman shouldn't be bitter, I thought. A loving mother shouldn't need recognition. A wife shouldn't keep score. So instead of changing my life, I became harder inside. That's the part one regret most. Not that I sacrificed for people I loved. Love requires sacrifice sometimes. I understand that. What I regret is allowing my fear of disappointing others to slowly drain the warmth from me. By my 60s, I noticed I had become impatient in ways I never used to be. Small things irritated me. I felt emotionally distant even in crowded rooms. I smiled automatically while privately feeling disconnected from everyone around me. I remember my daughter once saying very gently, "Mom, sometimes it feels like you're here physically, but not really with us." That sentence stayed with me because she was right. I had spent so many years suppressing myself that eventually I stopped bringing my full self anywhere at all. Then Richard died. People assume widowhood creates silence, but honestly, the silence had started years before his death. What changed afterward was that there was finally no one left to organize myself around, and that was terrifying. I remember standing alone in my kitchen a few months after the funeral, staring at the clock while sunlight came through the curtains, realizing I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with the rest of the afternoon. Not because I was grieving, though I was, because I genuinely no longer knew myself. Imagine reaching your 70s and realizing you've spent most of your life reacting instead of choosing. That realization cracked something open in me. At first, I felt anger, a great deal of it. Anger toward Richard, toward my parents, toward society, toward every person who benefited from my silence. But underneath that anger was another truth I resisted for a long time. No one forced me to abandon myself completely. Yes, certain people encouraged it. Yes, I was shaped by expectations and fears, and the particular conditioning many women of my generation carried. But eventually, I became a participant in my own disappearance. That was painful to admit, because blaming others entirely would have been easier. But honesty changes you if you let it. I started looking back over my life differently after that. I noticed how often I said yes when I meant no, how many opinions I softened, how many dreams I dismissed before anyone else could dismiss them first. I realized I had spent decades confusing love with compliance. And perhaps saddest of all, I had taught my children to expect less honesty from me than they deserved. One afternoon, my granddaughter asked me a simple question. She was maybe 19 at the time. We were sitting on the porch together drinking tea when she asked, "Grandma, what kind of music do you actually like?" Such a small question, but I froze, because my instinct was to answer with whatever seemed easiest or most likable instead of the truth. And in that moment, I suddenly saw how deeply this habit lived inside me. Even after all these years, authenticity still felt risky. I answered honestly anyway. I told her about the folk singers I loved in my 20s, the records I used to play while cleaning the kitchen when nobody else was home, the songs Richard found depressing. So eventually I stopped playing them aloud, and my granddaughter smiled and said, "I feel like I'm meeting you for the first time." I cannot fully explain how much that hurt and healed me at the same time, because she was right. There were pieces of me nobody had truly met, not even the people closest to me, mostly because I kept those pieces hidden. After that conversation, I started making small changes, not dramatic ones. At my age, transformation doesn't arrive like lightning. It arrives quietly through permission. I started expressing preferences without apologizing for them. I stopped agreeing automatically just to avoid discomfort. When people asked what I wanted, I forced myself to answer honestly before defaulting to whatever you prefer. It sounds simple, but for someone who spent nearly 80 years shaping herself around others, it felt enormous. And something unexpected happened. Not everyone liked the new honesty. Some people became uncomfortable when I stopped smoothing everything over. A few relationships grew strained because I was no longer willing to absorb every emotional burden silently. But other relationships deepened in ways I never expected. My children started talking to me differently once I started talking honestly myself. Real conversations replaced polite ones. I think they finally felt they could know me instead of simply leaning on me. And I realized something heartbreaking. People cannot truly love a person who is always performing. They can love the performance, depend on it, appreciate it, but genuine connection requires presence. And I had spent most of my life offering adaptation instead. At 79, I don't regret being caring. I don't regret generosity or patience, or the many ordinary sacrifices that come with loving a family. I regret how afraid I was to inconvenience anyone. Because when you spend your whole life trying never to upset others, you eventually betray yourself so many times that betrayal starts feeling normal. And the tragedy is, most people won't even ask you to disappear. They'll simply accept the version of you that keeps everything easy. It is your responsibility to remain visible. I wish I had learned that younger. I wish I had understood that disagreement does not automatically destroy love, that expressing needs does not make you selfish, that honesty and kindness can exist together. But I also know regret must be handled carefully in old age. Too much of it can poison the years you still have left. So these days, I try not to dwell only on what I lost. I focus also on what I've finally found. My voice. A quiet one, perhaps. A late one, but mine. Sometimes now, I sit alone on my porch in the evenings and ask myself simple questions I should have been asking all along. What do I think about this? What do I enjoy? What matters to me now? And slowly, after all these years, answers come. If you're listening to me today and you recognize yourself anywhere in my story, I hope you understand this before as many years pass you by. Keeping everyone happy is not the same thing as living honestly. You can be compassionate without abandoning yourself. You can be loving without becoming invisible. And the people who truly care for you will eventually want your truth more than your performance. I spent most of my life becoming the version of myself that caused the least friction. But peace built on self-erasure is not peace at all. It is loneliness wearing a pleasant face. At 79, I finally understand that. And for the first time in my life, I am learning how to sit with myself without apologizing for who I am. Thank you for listening to me. I invite you to subscribe for more reflective elder wisdom stories about life, love, regret, healing, aging, and the lessons we only understand with time. You are always welcome.